Welcome to Our Stories Matter, We Will Dance Again. I'm Susie Hess, joined by my co-host Miri Bar Halpern. This season, we're diving into stories of Jews, Arabs, and Christians, stories of hope and resilience during times of war. Today, we'll be exploring what it means to be young, Jewish, and politically engaged in America. Sometimes we encounter voices that inspire us to step up, speak out, and reconnect with our roots. Eli Tsives is one of those voices.
Eli's passion for activism and his ability to educate others about the complexities of the Middle East and Jewish identity on campus is truly remarkable. He's helping young people like himself navigate challenging conversation and empowering them to stand tall in their beliefs. In this episode, we'll explore identity, leadership, and how language and creativity can be powerful tools for change. So before we dive into our conversation with Eli, Susie, let's talk about the role of activism and how it played and shaped our Jewish identity, especially within the academic world.
Yes. So activism has always been central to Jewish resilience and survival. And whether it's through education, political engagement, or creative expression, it's a way of living our values and ensuring our voices are heard. Eli's story is really a powerful reminder of this legacy and of the strength we find when we come together as a community. So, as faculty at USC, I definitely have encountered Jew racism firsthand. For example, as you remember, when USC shared on social media that I was traveling to Israel to co-present with you on trauma-informed mindfulness in times of war at Geha Mental Health Center, which is the largest mental health facility in Israel, pro-Hamas protesters flooded the comments within like an hour. And the posts included anti-Jew hatred and personal attacks directed at me and at USC for hiring me. And then eventually, as you remember, USC took the post down for my safety. So all of that was incredibly, I guess I was just shocked and just, it was heartbreaking, to be honest, because I was proud.
I know that was so crazy to me because I remember I was in shock that people are hating you for going to help a group. And I remember thinking, how does helping one group of traumatized individuals by any means is actually hurting another group of traumatized individuals? It was crazy. It's like saying, if I'm helping women who were sexually assaulted, I'm actually hurting men who were sexually assaulted. It was crazy.
It was crazy. And I was so grateful that you wrote that in the comments. And I hardly knew you because we only met in Israel. So when you wrote that, I was like, okay, thank God. Thank God that, I have you as support, even though I never met you before. And also at USC, I've experienced a lot of dismissive attitudes about anti-Jew racism within DEI committees. So I have been criticized for being too strong for my stance against anti-Jew hatred, which obviously stifles any type of dialogue that could be possible. And I was the first faculty member to incorporate and advocate for anti-racism to be included in the curriculum. And I was never told you're being too strong about that.
So when you are sharing your voice as an activist and it's about your space, then you're too loud, you're too emotional. But when you're fighting for other people activism, people say it differently.
Yes. I mean, exactly. And, my other colleagues have been really silent and not engaging. And I think that underscores the significant challenges of addressing anti-Jew racism in academic and social justice spaces.
It's so interesting. So for you, activism was always been there. For me, it was different, or it's like I thought it was different. I remember we talked in the past and I told you I became an activist after October 7th. It was never part of who I am. And then I reflected about it and I realized that I was always an activist, but for things that are very personal to me. I see activism as a way of empowering and gaining control. And in the past, I used my voice when both of my kids had life-saving surgeries. They had some medical complications, and Noam had a surgery when he was 15 months old, and Arya when she was 10 months old, and we almost lost them. And with both of them, I went through that experience being in a hospital and getting no mental health support for me as a parent. And I remember that I was saying, I'm always telling people, put the oxygen mask on you. Why is no one coming to check in with me? And what I did afterwards, I joined a parent family advisory committee at the hospital and then eventually became the co-chair. as a way of becoming an activist for parents to help support them and their mental health as they support their kids' mental health and their medical health as well.
Amazing. Amazing.
But then, I never thought about it as an activism. And then after October 7th, I noticed that I became an activist again. I was like, why? And I realized it's the same reason. It's my kids' future, right? It's like
Yeah.
I need to make sure that they're safe. And I don't know if I'm moving the needle. I really don't know. Some days I feel that I'm not really changing minds, and other days I feel like, yeah, like some people are engaging in conversation and some shift is happening. But there's this quote that I love that really describe that. It's by Baldwin, and it says, "Not everything that is faced can be changed, but nothing will be changed without being faced."
I love that so much. And the beautiful thing about that is that it aligns with the values of Jewishness.
Right, right. Because if you'll do nothing, if you'll just stand back and not do for us and for others, right? Part of being Jewish is tikkun olam and helping everybody. Did you notice how I said with an American accent
Yes.
instead of tikkun olam? So if you do tikkun olam, that's part of our tradition, right? It's part of what I believe is so important for me as a human being and who I am as a Jewish person walking in this world, but as a parent as well. So, in this episode, we're going to hear Eli actually talking about his turning point and what led him to become an activist as well.
Welcome, everyone. Today we have Eli Tsives, a 19-year-old political science student at UCLA with a concentration in international relations. Eli has emerged as a prominent leader in campus activism, frequently engaging in debates and public discussions on the Middle East conflict. He has led educational workshops to Jewish high school students, preparing them to navigate complex conversations. Long-term, he envisions a career in politics. Fluent in English and Russian, and proficient in Chinese, Eli combines his linguistic abilities with a deep understanding of international relations to further his goals. In addition to his activism, Eli enjoys creative pursuits such as filmmaking, acting, and theater. He is also on the UCLA Clubwater polo team. So welcome, Eli.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
We are so happy to have you. And I saw you just as a major activist all over UCLA as I went to USC, and I was just seeing all of your activism. And I'm wondering if we can start first by you just telling us where you were on October 7th and how has your life changed since then?
October 7th here in the US, it was a Friday. Israel, it was, the day after. So for me, I was at Chabad. I was at Chabad having a lovely Shabbat meal, and I did not have my phone out with me because, during that Friday evening, I am not going to be on my phone. I went back to my dorm room. I checked my phone and I saw, Stand With Us was posting left and right. And unlike people who are living in Israel who are, eyes locked on the TV and horrified with what was going on, news traveled a little later to the US. So for me, I was a little confused by what was going on, and I didn't really think much about it, truthfully. It was late in the evening. I put my phone down and I went to bed. And then I woke up the next day and I checked the news. And that's when everything hits and you see the death toll and you see everything that happened, and you just don't believe it at first. And that number, it's just so high, 1,400 people dead. You really have to think twice and be like, oh my God, that's 1,400 people more, maybe. It's hard to describe with words, right? It's hard to describe with words how I felt and how every Jew felt. But what was more shocking is what happened less than a week after. The false rhetoric that we've been seeing about Israel coming from the anti-Israel protesters, specifically on college campuses. That would be the Students' Justice for Palestine group, which held their first protest against Israel less than a week after October 7th.
You know what's shocking, Eli? So in Boston, it wasn't even a week later. There were protests on October 8th. And I think it was something also on the 7th in the afternoon. There were already some people, I think there was a letter circulating, if I'm not mistaken as well, condemning or blaming Israel for what happened.
Everyone knows, we know, not everyone, I should say, we know, the Jewish community knows that their anti-Zionism is just a disguise for their anti-Semitism, right? We know that, but it's our job to show the world that.
And this is a good point of discussion as well, and we're probably going to get into it a little bit later, the how campuses specifically look at anti-Zionism versus anti-Semitism. It's very interesting to see how that and changing history. Right. So for me, for example, growing up in Israel, I grew up with a certain history in mind that was not that far away from me. I mean, my grandparents are Holocaust survivor. I'm the third generation. My parents were born part of the wars in Israel. Like my dad was part of it. And being here and seeing how people who never stepped foot in Israel changing the narrative, it's wild.
And why do they only do it about Israel? They're picking on the only Jewish country for a reason. There's so many other global conflicts that are going on in this world that no one is talking about. What's going on in South Sudan, what's going on in Myanmar. But no one cares about that, even though those are actual serious, conflicts and humanitarian crisis. They care about talking about Israel because it's the only Jewish country.
That's absolutely right. I'm curious, on October 8th and forward, how have your professors and peers and UCLA administrators, how have their responses impacted you?
In regards to my peers, it took a while until most of my friends in the theater program, which I was a theater major for the first year at UCLA, it's important to note, betrayed me. It took a little while because at first I like to say there was 24 hours of sympathy for the Jewish people. I came to school on Monday, after October 7th. I came to school on that Monday wearing a Israeli flag cape. No one really said anything mean to me. There was no problem like that. Some people gave me their sympathies. Those were the same people that in May, during the time of the encampment, late April, early May, were wrapping themselves up in keffiyehs and calling for intifadas. In regards to faculty and staff, I didn't have any serious problems with that until, like I said, later, during late April, early May, when I started becoming a public figure of advocating for Israel on college campuses.
What made you do that, Eli? What made you become, and from a, theater, I get it, center of stage, but what made you become loud? And I mean, you're proud. It sounds like you've been always proud of who you are, but being at the front, loud and advocating and becoming an activist.
We have to then look back at my family background in that regards, because my grandparents are also Holocaust survivors. My great-grandmother was a partisan who literally fought Nazis in the forests of Belarus, and I knew her very well. She only passed away when I was 14. She lived to 101. I got to spend many, many years with my great-grandmother who taught me so much history about the Jewish people and what it really means to be a Jewish warrior. I just never thought that the anti-Semitism that I would be fighting would be disguised in forms of anti-Zionism. I always thought it would be neo-Nazism. So when I was 10, I moved to China, and I lived in China for 4 years, and I had an incredible experience there. 2 years into living in China, I had a science teacher who stopped lecturing about science for a hot second and started going on this spree of anti-Israel propaganda. And I did not understand. I was only 12 years old. I did not understand what he was doing, why he was doing it. I remember I went home that day and I was like, Mom, this is what this teacher said. And my mom, she sat me down. She's like, okay, we are going to teach you everything I know about Israel. So she taught me a lot, and that kind of sparked my interest and love for the Jewish homeland, to the point where I ended up interviewing the Israeli consul general to Shanghai, learned a lot about Israel from him. When I came back to the U.S., my sophomore year back in the U.S., public high school, this is now already COVID, online learning, I have a teacher who goes on this spree of anti-Israel propaganda. This is a history teacher, and I mute myself and I start talking back to him. And he just mutes me because he could do that. It was an online, class. And in revenge, in retaliation, in counter protest, I hung up a big Israeli flag in the back of this room that is not here anymore because I took it to college with me. But so I was sitting in this exact same desk, this exact same angle. And there's a big Israeli flag, and my background was not blurred, so he could see it, and he could not turn off my camera. That was my way of protesting against him. I had the same teacher the year after. Again, we started arguing about Israel in class. He said, Eli, well, I said that everybody who is Hamas or supports Hamas needs to be destroyed. That's exactly what I said. And he said, Eli, some people might call Hamas freedom fighters. And Eli, you're sounding like a Nazi by saying that. And I was like, wow, did you really just call a Jew that I'm sounding like a Nazi? That was shocking. Of course, I reported him. Nothing happened to him. But these moments throughout my life were what got me into just being very confident in my Israel advocacy because I was arguing with figures of authority, people that have higher, power over me. I couldn't just, use my hands and, beat up these teachers. That wouldn't work. But I was young and naive, and I told myself, if I ever encounter a student who's my age, I will use my hands. Eventually, I do a stand with us internship my senior year of high school where they grill you on Israel knowledge. They don't just teach you about Israel, they teach you how to teach about Israel. And by the time I got to college and I did encounter students that were my age, I no longer had the urge to physically fight them. That was young past Eli. Now I realize I can just use my voice to destroy them in an argument because they don't have the facts.
Amazing. I love on so many levels that you have been obviously so proud and you have agency and confident with who you are, which, it sounds like you were raised by an amazing family. Then I think, so then jump to, I'm just jumping for a minute, how I originally saw you the very first time was on a video when you were being blocked from going to classes at UCLA. Now, most of the people were smaller than you, so it would have been easy to fit for you. It looked like physically just knock them all down, but then there would have been consequences, obviously, for putting hands on them. You were using your words. There was a whole group blocking you from classes, and people say, that the protests have been incredibly peaceful, but blocking is violence. And so I'm wondering if you can sort of talk about how that moment impacted you personally, academically, because I was blown away by how you were so calm. I don't think I would have been.
Also, Ela, before you answer that, can you, for those who didn't see the video, can you take us back to that moment and describe it from your perspective? What did you see? What was that like?
Well, before we go then, we have to go back a few days just to when the encampment started. The encampment started on Thursday, April 25th. UCLA's encampment happened 2 weeks after Columbia's encampment. I mean, the encampments were going from east to west. We were one of the last schools that had an encampment. I remember waking up my dorm room on the hill of UCLA, which is the residence area of UCLA, to helicopters flying around the school. And I knew right away what that meant because USC had their encampment spawn a few days before. So I knew what this meant. I called up my friends and I said, guys, let's go and counter protest. Let's just put up some Israeli flags. They said no. And I was like, why? And they said, because number one, it could be dangerous. Number two, they didn't want their TAs or faculty knowing that they're Zionists and discriminating against them in the classroom. Number three, they didn't see the point. And I said, you know what? Fine, don't do it. I'm going to do it. And I remember one friend said, don't do it, Eli, because you're running for USAC. USAC is the UCLA Student Association Council. It's the student government. You're going to lose the election if you do it. He was right. I 100% did lose the election. Not because I did that, because I couldn't care less about the election at that time because I was busy dealing with an encampment that needed to be removed. The election was the last of my concerns. And I made the right choice. I went, I put up the Israeli flag, and I held it by myself, and my friend came, and I had another friend who was walking by, and he just recorded me. And a person who claimed to be a professor, who we later found out was a TA, I don't know if he saw that video, she started yelling at me, and I got into an argument with her, and news channels started picking it up, there was a bunch of cameras, and she became hysterical. She started crying, and she literally ran off. People ask me why I always do this. Why do I go to counter protest with the Israeli flag? That was not the first time I've been to a SJP protest at UCLA. And the reason is it's not to change the minds of the pro-Hamas protesters. It's to show Jewish students that there's no need to be afraid of them. That's why. Anywho, so that's a Thursday. Friday, we have a bigger support of counter protesters that come up, like Israeli flags dancing around the encampment, showing that Jewish pride. Saturday, Shabbat, no one did anything. Sunday, there was a big rally, big pro-Israel rally there where I did a speech, and it was a very successful rally. We came in big numbers, biggest pro-Israel rally UCLA has ever seen. And then the day after that, Monday, wake up, go to class, and they expanded their encampment. They went 100 yards to the left, 100 yards to the right. So they literally expanded their encampment, starting to block people's access, not just through that big plaza near Royce Hall, but to actual buildings of classes. And I saw what was going on, and I'm like, I'm going through. I want to go through. But I also knew, like, I knew what was going to happen if I tried to go through. I knew they were going to link arms. And I saw this as a perfect opportunity to show the world what was going to happen. I predicted it. I'm like, okay, this is going to happen. They're going to block me. We're going to record it. We're going to get it out. I didn't think it was going to go viral to have 9 million views on my Instagram alone. but, I wanted to get the word out. So I handed my phone to some kid that was there. Didn't even know him. I just saw he had a Muggin Divi necklace on. I'm like, yo, can you just like record me really quickly? And I tried to walk through and they were blocking me. I was showing the camera that it's not the security guard that's blocking me. The security is just there to stand around. They literally have absolutely no jurisdiction. They do nothing. If they tell me to do something and I don't do it, I don't get in trouble for it. Of course, I listen to the security guards because I respect them, but the SJP protesters could not care less about what the security guards told them to do. To go back to your original question of why did I not just force my way through? Oh God, I wanted to. They asked me that same question on Fox News. They were like, Eli, you seem a little bigger than most of those people were women. I'm sure you could have totally just moved them. And I was like, well, it's not that simple. Because if I did, that video would have had a very different outcome. It wouldn't have been a video that we can use to show what was going on. It would have been a video that they used to show, oh, look how violent the Zionist agitators are. So to that I say, you have to have a lot of strength to put your strength away. Like, it's hard. They had a protest just last week on Tuesday where they were, again, blocking students' access through a different part of campus called Bruin Walk. And I recorded a video of, again, them not letting me go through. They were linking arms. And in that moment, I mean, this was literally last week, Tuesday.
I saw that one.
I was like, oh my God, how much I want to just push my way through. Because that is, a part of me, that's like the one thing I regret not doing that last video, was pushing my way through. But I know that I have to put my pride away for a second and do what needs to be done. Yeah, I guess that's what it was.
So much control and regulation. The psychology part is like, which skills have you been using? How do you do that? How do you like control your anger? Please teach us. Because I know myself, for example, I mean, I would like to think I'm skilled up in terms of emotion regulation, distress tolerance skills. And for me, when I encounter a few situations that I tried to literally talk with people in protest, I lost it. It's like talking to a brick wall that just throw lies and hate on you, and they don't want to listen. So I know that for me, it was hard to regulate, and, I just end up walking away. But how did you end up resisting that urge of forcing yourself and like just talking?
Well, I can tell you this. When you go into the situations, you need to understand that you're not going to change their mind. That is the biggest mistake that I've noticed a lot of Jewish moms do. I pick at Jewish moms because my mother is a great example of one of these people. She goes and she is yelling at them and she is there with the facts, and you can't beat my mother in an argument about Israel, but they're going to win in that situation because to the camera and to the people watching via video, you see one woman yelling at a bunch of students, and the students are being quiet and are using quotes and peaceful. You have to play the narrative. I mean, at the end of the day, this is what this is, right? This is a media war in the United States. This is like there's a big, big media war, and we're losing it. We are. I think we're making a comeback slowly. The encampment looked really bad on their community, like really bad, to the point where just last week when they did their blockade again, they were forcing not just Jews, but everyone to walk around unless you were part of their spiel. And I just random like athletes, D1 athletes, just like being forced to walk around through bushes, crawling, like you have to go through bushes, and they're going out loud, oh my God, F these people. Like, these people are so effing annoying. I'm being clean because this is a podcast. We don't need any French on this podcast. But point is, people are getting sick and tired. The SJP and the pro-Hamas narrative, they're looking really bad right now, because now they're not just targeting Jews and Zionists, they're making an inconvenience for everyone who disagrees with them. So, but in regards to your original question, yeah, it's not easy. I'll tell you that. It's not, and I don't recommend people do it. I tell people this. I'm like, listen, if you know that you will break and you will go into those situations and you will break, because it's very easy to, and most people do. And by breaking, I mean, you start yelling at them and you start, you become hysterical because you're looking into the face of a person who wants you dead. That's the truth. That's how much these people hate you. They won't necessarily maybe say it to you in that way. They're not going to say, I want to kill all Jews, but that's what they want.
So can you tell me, just to jump in for a second, like what, because, a lot of people, the pushback to me, at USC is that it's peaceful. It's a peaceful protest. And I was like, but blocking students is not peaceful.
No.
Can you sort of talk about that when people say they're peaceful? That's what academia is for. How do you respond to that?
Okay, well, we can look back at some other protests throughout American history to show you what is peaceful. A bunch of hippies sitting down and not disturbing anyone and smoking weed about the Vietnam War, I'd claim is peaceful on average. I wouldn't say they were peaceful when they would climb into trees and refuse, and disturb people who would have to, or like block highways. See, that's not peaceful. Disturbing people in their day-to-day lives, if it's through movement, or if it's through any other form of disruption, is not peaceful. Protests that are peaceful mean a person who wants nothing to do with either side of the conflict can get along their day and not have to think twice about the protest that's happening next to them. SJP is the best example of a non-peaceful protest, from the fact that they are blocking students to the fact of what they're chanting. Right? They're calling for intifadas. They're calling for literally the genocide of all Jews. They're saying globalize the intifada, right? They want the genocide of Jews in the entire world. From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free, right? All Jews from the Jordan River to the Mediterranean Sea, what happens to them? Where do they go? And, I've asked this question to them, and most of the time they don't answer because they refuse to talk to Zionists. But sometimes, rarely, very rarely, you can count on one hand, they do answer. And their answers are very interesting. They say, well, no, I don't think the Jews that are living there need to leave. And these are the less radical people that I'm talking to. I just think that Israel should not exist. And I'm like, well, okay, then what should it be? A one-state solution. Okay, well, who's going to rule it? Jews, Arabs, like Christians? Who's in charge? If it's one state, they don't answer. We know what they want, but they don't answer. Sorry, I went on another spiel of...
I love these spiels because I think because you are boots on the ground, you are seeing it, you're experiencing it. And also that's part of, that's the intention of the podcast, is really bridging the divide, dismantling the polarization, because the media war is real and there's a lot of false information out there. So hearing from you, who is like firsthand experiencing it, and we're seeing it everywhere, is really powerful.
Eli, I'm wondering how, with everything that's been going on in the last year and a little bit, how did it impact your sense of belonging and safety on campus? As a Jewish person, as a Zionist person, do you feel safe on campus, and do you feel connected to your peers?
In regards to safety, there have been moments where I needed to carry pepper spray with me. The most time when there was a genuine safety concern was after the encampment. This is spring quarter of last year. I was in the UCLA Opera, where I would perform on stage in front of 500 people. There was no tickets to get in. There was no RSVP to get in. Anyone could have walked in. I told the director this. They had to do a last minute RSVP, but it was still free. I wasn't allowed to post anything on my Instagram, and I had security with me because it takes one idiot, it takes one idiot. There have been situations when I was walking in Westwood by myself at night and a car pulls up to me and they go, yo, fuck you, Eli. And I'm like, and they drive away. And people have said that to my face. People found out where I lived last year and vandalized my, the whiteboard outside of my dorm room door. A lot of those situations. The one time I genuinely physically felt scared, one time, and that was Wednesday evening, when spring quarter, can't give you the exact dates at the moment, but that was when the police were taking down the encampment. Before the police, they went in the evening to take it down, but this was around 7 p.m. And there was imagine about 2,000 or so anti-Israel protests. So at this point, most of these were not students. These were hoodlums coming from all parts of LA County, just driving here to be a nuisance. I put myself in a really bad situation. I was there by myself with an Israel armband, and at this point, everyone who is, hates Zionists knows how my face looks. So I'm walking around, everyone's looking at me, and I had this one guy walk up to me and say, yo, you're that Zionist, right? And I was like, and he goes, you know what? Let's just fight it out right now. And he puts his hands up, and I this kid is he's 2 feet away from me. He's really close to me. And this would have gone down in one very simple way if I engaged in a fight with him. He would have been really, really hurt. And then I would have been really hurt because there was about 2,000 people around me that hated me and that would have sided with him. Like, it wouldn't have ended well for him, wouldn't have ended well for me. So I look at him in the eye and I said, listen, bro, you don't want to do that. And right as I said that, a bunch of people came and like they broke it up before it even started. And immediately I called my friends. So I'm like, get over here right now. And then I had like 5 Persian Jews pull up with me and they stayed with me for a little bit. So pretty much for the all of the end of spring quarter, I had to walk around with friends. If I'm walking around, I ended up buying an electric scooter so I could scoot around and not deal with any of the hate that I experienced in the hallways. This year it's been a lot different. I haven't received hate to that level anymore. The most somebody has ever said was like, they have looked at like my IDF jacket and they were like, free Palestine. Or they looked at my Israel shoes and they were like, nice shoes. Just like petty things, nothing compared to last quarter. So that's in regards to safety for me personally. But I do not speak for the safety of all of my peers because I know many people that have it a lot worse in regards to fear. Not actual safety concerns, but like just fear, because fear and genuine safety concerns are two different things. I know many friends of mine that are scared to wear their Mug and Divvy necklaces on the open. Majority of these are like my female friends, and it makes sense. There's a bunch of crazy big dudes from the LA hood that pull up in keffiyehs. Like, if I was in their shoes, I would be horrified as well. It's not easy. So a lot of people I know that are hiding their Mug and Divvy necklaces away, but that's the work that I'm doing, is to try to convince them, no, there's no need to hide your Mug and Divvy necklaces away. You need to show them that you're strong and you're not afraid, because if we show fear, we succumb to what they want.
So powerful. I mean, I could definitely identify, because I think I was sharing with you before October 7th, I never wore any Jew bling. And then starting, October 8th, I bought, a Star of David. I wear it, but I wear it being very aware of my surroundings, where before I wasn't really aware of my surroundings. I mean, as a woman, yes, but not as a Jewish woman. So I'm curious, but now when I see you, I'm like, well, if he can do it with like thousands of people on a campus, I mean, I could do it when I'm remote for sure, at least, and going to like Rite Aid, the pharmacy. So my next question for you is, do you believe that UCLA's administration has adequately addressed incidents like all the ones you've experienced? And if not, what steps should they take?
It's complicated to answer because a part of me is pissed off at the administration, but a part of me knows the administration very well, and I work with them. I have a dean that I'm very close with in the college, in the school of, in the Department of Code of Conduct, right? So his job is literally to get people in trouble when they break the code of conduct, and they are doing things. We just don't know about it because they cannot disclose when they get somebody in trouble. But do I think they should be doing more? Absolutely. I've told it to him. I was like, Dean, I think you should be doing so much more. SJP needs to be dismantled, yada, yada, yada. We've seen schools that have dismantled SJP as an official club. Why can't UCLA do it? Well, many reasons that they tell me. But the administration needs to do more. In fact, both sides would agree that the administration needs to do more. Well, that's the most ironic part. Both sides hate the administration. I take that back. I wouldn't say we hate the administration. I'd say we're disappointed in the administration. Their side hates the administration. They want the administration to agree to all of their BDS proposals. We just wanted the administration to get rid of SJP as a club because we all know that they're a hate spewing club, and we wanted them to call in the police a lot faster. They've agreed to this demand. Anytime there is a big SJP protest, police are immediately there. And then if it gets any way the police think it's going to get violent or something, they're there in riot gear. Like, since the encampment, the police do not, they take this seriously now. It's also important to mention that it wasn't the police who was not going in to take it down. The police was ready to do it day one. The administration was telling them, no, let us figure this out. Let us do this peacefully. So the police are ready to act immediately.
I'm sitting here and I'm hearing you talking, and my mind going to so many different areas when I should be more mindful. But the big one is for me, who didn't grow up here, who did not have, I guess, the undergrad college experience. I came here for my doctorate as already older than most of my peers. It's amazing to me to witness what's happening from a cultural perspective. It's almost like a complete history shift. Because I mean, when I think college or universities, I'm thinking I'm going to go there to get my education, whatever profession I want to get, going to make new connection, going to meet people. Like that's the experience. And it looks like in the last year or so, and it probably, when I got kind of like more understanding of it, and understanding that it started, the anti-Israel stance started years and years ago. I mean, it's mind-blowing once you go down that rabbit hole. And at the same time, I can see why what we're seeing now. But connecting to what you said at the beginning about how your theater peers, and I'm a theater major as well. I was.
Really?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. My BA was theater and psychology, did theater all my life. I know how tight this group is. Day and night, you're together, you're rehearsing to things. Like those were my people. Like they knew the good and the bad about me. So to hear you saying those are the people who checked on me and then flipped on me, I'm just thinking like putting that together with the fact of what college experience should be like and how now it's everything but a college experience, in my opinion, in a way. I mean, there's something about what's happening that, there's one thing, let's say you're a political major and you're criticizing the state of Israel. I criticize the government of Israel, right? I criticize the people there. I don't hate the people. I don't hate Jews around the world because of what, let's say, the prime minister is doing. What I've been saying, and maybe it's false media, but the coverage that I've been saying is that there is specific hate against you as a Jewish person and against you as a Zionist, against Israel as a country. And it's not criticism, it's actual hate. So how do universities, or what is your take of it? This is a long way to ask you. What do you think is that the university can do to balance free speech, right? Let's say I have an opinion, I want some free speech, and also making sure that everybody feels protected and safe, because it doesn't look like Jewish people feel protected and safe from what you're telling us.
Let's do some constitutional law analysis here. No, I'm just kidding. Hate speech is free speech, but hate speech should not be protected on educational campuses. That's simple. If somebody is, you more than have the right to go out in a public space and scream, "I hate Zionists." You can say much worse than that, actually. Welcome to America, right? And I love our First Amendment for it because I can do the same right back at them. What you cannot do and should not do is go in the middle of UCLA and scream, "I hate Zionists," because now you are discriminating against all Zionists on campus and you're making them feel very unsafe. Because I promise you, if I went and screamed something that was targeting against a different minority group, I would get in trouble quite quickly. In fact, say there was a bunch of men that pulled up to UCLA and came out of their cars in, white Ku Klux Klan outfits, police would be there immediately. They would be removed. Even though, theoretically, it is a public space and it is public land because it's a public university, they would have the right to be there. Then again, administration wouldn't take them seriously. They would get rid of them. If you are, if you're advocating for aggression and you're advocating for hate, you need to be removed off of our campus. It's that simple. There's something very interesting that happens at UCLA, and I'm sure definitely Berkeley, and I'm sure other college campuses, and that is they're called the RevComs, the Revolutionary Communists. These are a bunch of old people in their 60s, 70s that come in with communist newspapers, and they're preaching communism. There's 3 of them that do it. They're not a big nuisance. They're peaceful. They're annoying. But they're not breaking any rules, and they're, exercising the First Amendment right. More than happy if you want to do that. I don't care. But if you're doing hate speech, you have to be disciplined.
Yeah. And so how do you think, since you're in it, how do you think that students and organizations can work together to dismantle the polarization and foster civic engagement at UCLA and beyond? Because I'm sure you saw the discussion with Mossab Youssef and and the hostage and the student who was really not listening to a hostage and to someone who is the son of Hamas in terms of what we can do to dismantle the polarization. So I wish you were on that panel. But I'm curious, what would you say? What do you think?
I was asked to be on that panel.
Oh,
I said, absolutely not. I will never give that man the time of day. I won't even use his name because of how much he is a joke. But that's who you're dealing with. You're dealing with a bunch of jokesters who have no skin in the game and know absolutely nothing about the Middle East. They read one book and they think they're experts. We want to bridge the gap, obviously. I can tell you that pretty much everyone in my community is more than happy to have a conversation with them. They don't want to have a conversation with us. Every time I approach them, I put my hand down and I said, "I'm Eli, nice to meet you." They go, "I know who you are." And they don't shake my hand. There have been situations when I have met people that are Palestinian and befriended them because a lot of actual Palestinians or people who come from a Palestinian background, whose maybe parents were the ones that immigrated to the US, don't support SJP because they know that SJP it's not advocating for the Palestinian people. SJP could care less about Palestinian people. I would argue that SJP cares more about, hating on the state of Israel and advocating for socialism. Tuco, what? Why are they talking about a political ideology? But that's just what SJP does. Oh, and then they also care about supporting every other protest that is happening on campus. We just had a cafeteria worker strike, which is understand they're not getting paid enough. They were striking, fine. SJP was part with them, a bunch of students, kafias, striking with them. What are you guys doing? So you can understand why Palestinians are these people are taking our actual lives as a joke. And the way to actually approach them is you have to agree on very simple things, very basic fundamental values, and that is this. I agree that there needs to be one day a Palestinian state, a two-state solution. One day. Probably not anytime soon, but one day. But you need to agree that Israel is not going to go anywhere. If they can say yes, well, look at that. Now we got progress. Then you guys got to both agree that Hamas are terrorists. They need to be destroyed. The Israeli hostages need to come home. Basic. If they can say yes, conversation is possible. Because now, no matter what they say to you, you can't hate them because you know that they hate Hamas and they agree that Israel should exist. They probably disagree with the borders of Israel, but they think that there should be an Israel. And I've had conversations with people like this. Very few conversations, unfortunately, because most of the people that you're dealing with that are part of SJP, they want to see the destruction of Israel.
Yeah.
It's so sad to hear that because I feel like those are students who are just not educated and brainwashed for sure. And it almost looked like this is kind of the cool thing to do is let's hate Israel. And it's, I had a patient who literally told me if I'm not saying out loud as a Jewish person and some of my non-Jewish clients as well, that I'm against Israel, I will get kicked out of clubs. I would not get invited to parties. I will lose friendships. So it's almost like this choice between part of my identity or something I believe in or thought I believe in to feel a sense of belonging and security, which is a horrible thing to choose between. So that's interesting. But what you're saying, it's almost like, if I understand it correctly, there's a few layers. One, am I engaging with them? Do I feel safe enough to engage with them? And then with whom am I going to engage with? And will they answer specific questions to see if there's even going to be a dialogue? And if there's no dialogue, basically walk away. And if there is a dialogue, let's see how we come to a place where at least we have a few things to agree upon. And then we're listening to one another. Then there's actually a conversation.
I agree. You like I said, and anytime I start these conversations with people, I say, let's all slow down for a second. Can we both agree that we want peace and we want this war to end? Yes? Yes? Great. You want to lead the discussion. Don't let them lead the discussion. You take it into your hands. Because number one, if they start leading the discussion, what they're going to do is they're going to start trying to trap you. Hey, so what did the Balfour Declaration say? So, what did the British promise to the Palestinians? And I'm like, okay, slow down. I can school you in facts if you want. What is a Palestinian? When did that national identity that you so claim you are actually come in? What year? Definitely did not exist in 1918. I can tell you that. So but playing that game, once you start going down that rabbit hole of no, you're wrong, I'm right, no, you're wrong, I'm right, and then you start going to talking about facts about the Ottoman Empire, and then you start going back into biblical history, conversation died when you even started it.
Yeah.
That's the thing I've noticed when I go and when people that I've learned from as well go, you know what? You're right. All of these things happened. And you're right. The UN partition plan gave more land to Israel than it did to what should have been a Palestinian state, which of course did not exist because you guys declined the UN partition plan. But you're right. You're absolutely right. You're right that Israel took a lot of land in 67, but that happened. There's no point of criticizing that because that's not going to change anything. We're the future generation. Let's sit down and come up with a peace plan about how we can live peacefully in the future because currently our leaders can't do that. We have to do that. And when you ask somebody that, the ball's in their court to be the bigger man or to be a or to be a to be a joke. If they want to, and there's people watching usually in these situations, right? And if they want to be if they want to be the bigger man as well, they can be like, yeah, you're right. Let's talk about this. But if they want to act like cool to their peers and stuff, they'll be like, no, screw you, blah, blah, and they'll walk away mad. They won't even shake your hand. I'm telling you, the shake hand thing works all the time. I mean, I had a video go viral just because of it. I do it all the time. That was just the first time it was filmed. Always put your hand out to see if they're even willing to shake a Jew's hand.
So interesting on so many levels. Yeah. I mean, I think everything that we've been talking about, I'm blown away by everything of who you are as a human being. I'm blown away by your regulation, putting out your hand, staying calm. I mean, I'm trying to practice that because I experienced gaslighting. I mean, I just did the other day and Miri was like coaching me via text. And, it was incredible because the gaslighting becomes so dizzying where it's hard to focus on what is happening on the here and now. And you're taking me over here, which is what I saw in the panel with Mossab and the hostage and the student, that they were just the student was going below the belt and he wasn't listening to people with lived experience. And so listening to you with the lived experience and being at UCLA, experiencing the violence of being blocked. I'm super grateful for you. And we always ask 2 questions to everyone. So the final 2 questions are, the first one is, what will you do for your healing today? Because obviously you're doing a lot, that you're super regulated and just a calm human being.
And what am I going to do for my healing?
Yeah, because you're obviously doing something and it's working.
What could you do for self-care for you?
I don't know. No one's ever asked me that question. That's not something I actively think about. Going home for me, like what I am, is a great for my mental health. I always, when I come home and my mom wants to talk about some Israel stuff or Jewish stuff, I'm like, Mom, not now. When I come home, not now. Because my advocacy has almost become a job, and it's never ending. It literally is never ending. It's a never ending fight. So once you embark on that never ending fight, you need to find times to just pause and say, I'm on vacation. I'm not going to think about what's going on. I guess that's how I also do sports. My water polo is a great time to get my anger out. My team is super respectful of me. They love me. They agree with me. I'm so blessed to have such a club water polo team, to the point where they've cracked some crazy jokes in regards to my whole protest. I once came to practice with I forgot what it was. Maybe it was a big I think it was a scratch or a bruise or something I had on visibly. And they were like, no, that's not what it was. That's not what it was. I had a sprained wrist. That's what it was, because I fell off my electric scooter. And the captain goes, what happened? Did you punch a protester in the face? So I'm very blessed to have a very supporting water polo team.
And last question, what was it like to tell your story today?
It was incredible. It was incredible to tell my story today, because I'm looking back and analyzing everything I've done in the last, not just 6 months, but just my life since I started my Israel advocacy. And when you're speaking about it out loud, you kind of don't believe it sometimes. You're like, wow, really? I did that? That's crazy. What made me want to do that in that exact moment? And then you're transported back to that moment and you're reliving those memories. So I thank you both for allowing me the opportunity to tell my story.
Thank you, Eli. And thank you for being the voice, for keeping other people safe, and for being an example. I think living by example, being proud of who you are. And like you said, if you're not going to do it, who's going to do it, right? And the more people see you do it, maybe more will join I wouldn't call it a fight. It's well, maybe we should call it a fight. So should we call it a fight, right?
Fight for the existence of our people. Absolutely.
Yeah. And I think it's like an intellectual fight. And that's the difference, because you are just the calmest, activist, and I've been doing activism for a long time. It just switched in terms of who I'm advocating for now. But you're the calmest advocate with your words that are fire. So I appreciate your heartbeat. And I really hope this is a dominoes effect for how students can have civil engagement. Yeah. And I appreciate who you are as a human being.
Thank you both. Thank you.
We'd like to thank our listeners, music composer Jonathan Bargiora, sound designer Ivan Reyes, podcast advisor Donna Fazzari, and special thanks to the Academic Engagement Network for their generous support. Today's episode is co-produced by Professor Susie Hess and Dr. Miribar Halprin. Our Stories Matter, We Will Dance Again is brought to you by Trauma Informed LA. Check us out on Facebook and Instagram and at our website at traumainformedla.org. Please give us 5 stars on iTunes so more folks can have access and donate to traumainformedla.org so we can keep recording and healing through our storytelling episodes.